So fellow Kryptonians, welcome back to a brand new Superman and Lois episode 3 breakdown, recap and review, and there is a bizarre amount of things coming out of this episode. Did you see what I did there? Thank you. No, but really, I'm super happy with just 3 episodes in how Superman and Lois are handling season 2 already. This was a thoroughly just great episode in so many fronts. It had so many things coming out of it, as I keep mentioning, but so many good moments of nuggets of just substance for characters such as Lois and her father. John Henry Irons, that moment. I need to shut up. I'm just going to get into this. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe if you're not subscribed here for weekly breakdowns on news, reviews of movies, TV shows, and good things like that. Let's get into this. So this picked up right at the beginning with Superman scanning the world. He was heading towards the mines just to kind of like refamiliarize you into the plot. He gets whammied again, and it's just like, don't forget, Superman is basically dealing with something, the thing in the mines, if you will. And oh man, I just want to get to that part. Can we just skip everything else and get to that part? After this moment, they basically decide we need to kind of get down there or just kind of figure out what is down there or what is about to break out. And they all decide that John Henry Irons will basically be the one to do that. Of which, by the way, Clark is still just kind of like, I don't want Anderson knowing about this because it's freaking Anderson. And by the way, some people were saying Dr. Faulkner at the end of episode 2 was on the phone to someone. Obviously, who is it? Who is it? And I do agree. I think it could very well be Anderson. I think, considering there is a military presence there, I think regardless, he's working with that tech company, Dr. Faulkner, to get to the bottom of that. I don't really know for what reason yet. Maybe knowing Anderson is to weaponize or to see it as an opportunity for his super team to save the day from whatever this thing is in a very arrogant, cocky, overconfident kind of, hey, this will make me look better. I think that is a bit too cliche though, so I still don't think we're completely on the ball with what Anderson could be after with this thing. That's assuming that Dr. Faulkner is on the phone to Anderson, but I do feel like in a slightly predictable way, it wouldn't surprise me if the person she is in communication with does turn out to be General Lane's replacement, Anderson. This is where we get the seeds laid this episode for Jonathan still getting annoyed at, you know, that person on the football team juicing up on something. He reckons it's roids, but my god, do we get... This is what I mean about information on all fronts. I've got a lot of theories as to where Jonathan could go now. This is a theory that has been amongst you guys, the fans, for quite some time. We'll dive into that a little bit later, but I felt like the way they played the Sarah and Jordan thing this episode was a bit strange. Maybe it's just my core personal beliefs that is conflicting the way I've taken this. Ultimately, what I will say is that I liked how it ended. That was like a beautiful kind of mushy way for Clark to give the necklace his grandfather gave to his grandmother in high school. That was beautiful. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a bit of a hopeless romantic that way. However, when we had Jonathan and Jordan talking about the relationship advice, with Natalie offering her opinion saying she hated keeping that secret from you, maybe you can identify with that. And they're going with this whole kind of, if you want her to be cool about your powers one day, would you want her to react the way you are now? And I'm just like, but as Jordan said, this is completely different. She chose when they were together to do something kind of bad, you know, cheating. I mean, I don't know why I'm air quoting it. She literally did cheat. Granted, it is just a kiss, but it's not comparable. Like, Jordan's keeping his powers secret for a very obvious reason. So to make this kind of comparison or analogy to, like, when he one day wants to be honest with her about his powers, do you want her to react the way you are now? But, like, she cheated on him. I don't get it. Like, what? I kind of get what the episode was going for, but I feel like the execution, and again, it just may be me. Some people watching this might be like, oh, you know, I'm fine. You know, kissing is fine. If my partner kissed someone else, I would forgive them. But for me, no, it's just weird. And later on, when we had Sarah go to her mother talking about how she did kiss someone in camp, she was just like, I'm not ashamed, I'm not embarrassed. Fair enough to not be embarrassed, but like, I'm not ashamed. Like, what? Why? But you cheated on him and you're not ashamed of that? Like, I don't get what this episode was trying to do there. I guess they were going for the whole, like, I was exploring and I'm not ashamed of that, but like, the way it comes off is that she's saying, just like she did to Jordan again this episode, like, I told you that kiss was nothing. I'm not ashamed, basically. It's like, what do you mean? I feel like if anyone in a relationship does that, they would feel ashamed. Like, kind of, you know, like... Am I missing something here? I'm pretty sure if my girlfriend cheated on me through kissing someone, that would A, bother me, B, I would expect her to feel a little bit ashamed of what she did, and C, I wouldn't compare my Kryptonian powers being kept secret to the way I'm reacting about a kiss to her maybe reacting one day about me telling her about my powers if you're still with me there. I just feel like this weird this was weird way of going about that story, but I'm just going to move on. Would appreciate your thoughts on that anyway. In other news, though, with Lana, we do have her on her mayor grind. We have her address the town, and this was quite an organic scene, I feel, because she was, you know, I felt sorry for her in a way because she was just saying her best. She's the most honest candidate, if anything, after the other mayor has been shown to be a bit of a scumbag. She was talking about these loans, but then we had that Chuck guy who lost his farm from a while ago saying things about, like, the reverse mortgages that she was involved with back then, and she says at the time I wasn't aware of how lopsided those loans were or whatever, and then he's just like, weren't you the one recruiting for Morgan Edge? And again, it was like, well, she wasn't aware of it then. So I do see how, from the public consensus, yes, it does turn out to be a coincidence that each time she wasn't aware of it, but it's like, what are you going to say next time? Let's assume you were mayor and something goes a bit squiffy sideways or whatever. You just weren't aware of it again? And it does seem like, yeah, I don't know if we should give you all our chips, so to speak. And ultimately, as a result of this, she loses her confidence a little bit, but she somewhat finds her footing again with Sarah helping her basically reach people on social media, I'm guessing, whatever she was recording with people writing in. Once again, I do enjoy the Cushing family storyline. I know it's not for absolutely everyone, but one thing I always maintain every episode review when I talk about this is that they are kind of the living, breathing identity of the town that this show is addressing episode to episode, with at least Kyle and, not Sarah, I mean Lana, mostly. Then we have Lois looking at this, I think, podcast of the culty person, Allie, who obviously, this hits quite personal to home because Lucy was a part of this and almost lost her life, and considering where things get to at the end of this episode, my god, this is what I mean with this episode. So many things were coming out, so many strong, rooted storylines that are in an abundance, really, and it doesn't feel overcrowding right now, which I'm happy to say. They're being teased to us in this episode, which I'm so excited for, because there's like a battle on so many fronts for so many characters. And does anyone think, though, considering they're playing this as like a cult storyline that Lucy's got tangled up in, and not only that, it could very well be Lucy getting tangled up in it again, considering who goes to visit Lois at the end of this episode, considering this woman's name is Allie. If any of you guys know what happened in real life with the Smallville actor Allison Mack, it just feels like, I mean, a slight kind of nod to something like that. I'm not saying it is, but like, they could have called this cult leader something different from Allie. Because, you know, real life Allison, you could say her name for short is Allie as well. So, like, I'm going to kind of get past that. But if you know, you know. If not, I guess feel free to Google what happened with that Smallville actress. It's pretty messed up. As the episode progresses, we have Lois ringing her dad up, who's trying to fish in the meantime to help John Henry Irons get in the mine. We have Jordan appealing to Clark, saying, I want to tell Sarah about my powers, basically, how he loves her. I like the dynamic they're showing on screen here, the way that the parent sees it. It's like your mind could change. For you to tell someone about Kryptonian powers, do you not even begin to understand that if she did change her mind about something, our entire family would be compromised, let alone the idea that she could become the target in the future of someone who wanted to know my identity. But again, he's just like, Dad, she wouldn't do that. And it's like, yes, I kind of believe you, but like, we can't know that for sure. And he kind of flexed his heat vision. Now, I really felt like Tyler Hoechlin really shined this episode, really shined, because there were several moments after moments like this where he looked almost catatonic, in shock with how almost appalled he was at his own behavior. Obviously, it's not technically his fault, but again, I really was a fan of the way Tyler kind of showed Clark's emotions and feelings with what he was dealing with, these intrusive thoughts and feelings of this other creature or thing that we learn about later on. Same can be said for the little disagreement that happened between Lois and her father before that also then later on got to a little bit of a reconciliation over things that should have been said years and years ago about growing up without their dad, so to speak. But initially, when we had that little argument between Lois and Sam in the Kent farm, you know, we had Sam Lane's lip quivering. It was very emotional. Lois's eyes were all glazed up with tears. It was really powerful acting, and this is something I always praise the cast on of this show. They do a phenomenal job of not just fake crying-y kind of thing. I'm really engrossed in those particular scenes. For example, when it came to Sam Lane, I think he was really worried about losing Lucy if he was to come in between her and her sister Lois again. Not to mention, like, he lost his wife, who just left the picture completely. It's clearly in such a present day scene, you can feel the gravity of the weight of the trauma of this Lane's family past history, if that makes sense. And again, just kudos to the acting for conveying that, because otherwise, if it was anything less, it would just feel like, okay, these are the lines, but am I really in this scene? And again, another thing on the Lois front, just considering how it ends and the trauma this family has been through with, which I'm sure is a very kind of somewhat half-decent representation of what it could be like for some people who have known somebody to get involved in with a cult. That must be horrific, and how worried you must be for them being brainwashed and stuff. And for this episode at the end to leave it off on Lucy low-key sending Allie to Lois, and just the way she looked at Allie in that moment, like she was instantly tearful, because it just brings all of that washing back, and it's like, oh god, now we have to scoop my sister Lucy out of this again, and we've got this freaking cult leader who's just like flexing, saying, oh, you know, Lucy didn't want to come. She thought it'd be better if I came instead. So yeah, a lot going on at the minute, and these scenes are very rich. And I know this is me coming off of the comment about Tyler heckling, but just to put the gravity of the rich story that each character has in this show, I think that's one of the best things going for Superman and Lois. There's so many genuinely good storylines. It's not so basic where it's like everyone is Team Flash in the Cortex fighting this one villain. And I'm not trying to pretend like they don't have individual storylines, but they aren't nearly as rich as what they're, you know, assigning to each character in this show, with Jonathan and the XK route, Jordan, Powers, Sarah, this, that, and the other. You know, there's so many things I can list off. Now, around about this time in the episode, after some Jordan and Sarah stuff, Jonathan learns from his girlfriend that that rival of his was taking basically XK. And I was like, I knew it! We've been talking about this in previous episodes, but the interesting thing is, a big theory has been, what if XK was to ever be taken by somebody with the name of Jonathan? Could this unlock his powers? And with the way the episode somewhat ends, with him going to his girlfriend, yeah, it seems that he's going to take some XK. This, again, imagine how batshit crazy Lois is going to go when she finds out that her son has been taking, I guess, she probably will react the same as it being drugs, because it basically is alien-esque drugs that can make you super strong, as we saw with that guy in the airport scene. He inhaled that XK gas, made him super strong. Well, you have to think this will be the catalyst for that genetic mutation or unlocking for Jonathan Kent to unlock his Kryptonian powers. But before all of that happened, we had Clark coaching a game. Jonathan kind of lost it because, yet again, this guy is on the side. It's driving me insane how out in the lurch Jonathan always is, but we had that douchebag basically flexing. That starts a bit of a fight. I love how Clark had to pretend to get punched in that second. I'm surprised he didn't play it off as to how Jonathan's hand wasn't hurting, because he would have basically done the equivalent of punching just something incredibly hard, because he just punched the Man of Steel, so that would really hurt your hand. But it was just hilarious seeing Clark get knocked back and pretend to fall on the floor the way he did. But he was really angry about this, obviously, which led to another outburst situation in where he couldn't control his heat vision. He just had to let it out in his hands, which is a nice callback to how Jordan did the same thing in season 1. Again, really like how Tyler heckling kind of just played how in shock he was in this moment. We had Jonathan drive back, which had Clark just in the passenger seat, just staring into nothing. I think he's just, again, so disgusted about everything. But until they hear back from John Henry Irons, who in the meantime, you know, got clearance to go in the mines and check out what's going on there, they're going to keep him in the house and just kind of wait and stand by. Nat wasn't somewhat happy about that, because obviously she's concerned about her father getting involved in all of this. Plus, if she was to ever to lose him, I get her feelings. She would be alone in this brand new world, which would really suck, obviously. The only thing that I thought was kind of off, by the way, the only one of the criticisms I have for this episode is with the Lois and General Lane scene that we had before, that I already briefly spoke about. We had Lois check up on John Henry Irons before that conversation took place, and he said, oh, you know, he just seems to have, you know, been standing still. Maybe he's hit a roadblock or something. But later on, when he was going to help out Superman with the whole fight that was unfolding with the thing that broke out, we had John Henry Irons' AI saying biorhythms indicate he's unconscious. Well, it's just like, you could have told Sam Lane that earlier when Lois came in? Isn't that convenient that you only said that when... Do you see what I mean? Anyway, though, we have Lois and Clark talking about kind of how bad Clark feels about all of this, and he feels like the end of the world is coming, and Lois says that now it's not the time to go all Doomsday on me, which is a kind of cool reference, considering... And some people were saying that the showrunner didn't say Doomsday last week, but he most definitely did, by the way. But it could have... I mean, it's technically not a lie because they could still be doing an adaptation with this whole Bizzaro thing where it is kind of super doomy in a sense. And for example, the very line that Todd Helbing said last week, that what we love to do as a writing staff with Greg and just generally is to take different parts of the mythology and combine them, like what we did with Morgan Edge and the Eradicator and the Half-Brother story. So with Doomsday, we wanted to find ways that we could take the character and find a new way to define an introduction and sort of flip it on its head. And the flipping on its head is obviously the kind of Bizzaro reveal, but obviously that's why a lot of people thought it'd be kind of like Doomsday through and through, because the showrunner literally just said that, so with Doomsday. So you see why I was saying Doomsday last week, considering it's interesting that he did that. And obviously it was kind of an homage with the Big Daddy Bioshock-esque design of an early Doomsday. But even then, even though it's very obvious that at the end of this episode it is Bizzaro, and we're about to get into that conversation, there could still be, again, with this adaptation, not everything's copy and paste, so they could still add some weird Bizzaro/Doomsday vibe to this Bizzaro origin rather than a cut and paste of straight up Bizzaro, even though I'm not gonna lie, that is straight up Bizzaro. I mean, freaking opposite costume, the very white flaky skin, the ripped cape, it is through and through reverse. And also, guys, if you reverse the audio of what alien language Bizzaro was speaking, it's in English, and we'll talk about that in just a second. This is where we finally get the Thing break out of the mines, and we get our first look at what he actually properly looks like, and it is, as I said, like, if any of you played Bioshock, you know what I mean by Big Daddy, especially Bioshock 2. It seems like the Big Daddy from Bioshock 2, I feel like if I put that up on the screen, you can kind of see the vibes I'm going for there. We have Superman land, and it gets into a bit of a battle, like a really even battle where they're smacking the crap out of each other, but it turns out that Superman is getting absolutely blasted. John Henry Irons requests the suit. That was a really, really, really cool moment when he jumps and the suit comes apart and just connects onto him. I also love how John Henry Irons in his steel suit was firing the red solar charges and he wasn't doing a thing. The only thing it did do is knock a bit of the helmet off so we could see that it is basically Tyler Hoechlin under there, and that was super interesting because it's like, well, crap. And funnily enough, guys, in my last week's review, I was talking and I said, I'm not going to entertain this idea, but I kind of did anyway. I said something along the lines is, I'm not going to try and say, even though I am saying it, that what if that means it's another kind of Clark Kent, basically, maybe from another multiverse, because after what Superman's mother said with how it's an interdimensional thing, I was just joking about it being like another version of him. But I was just like, considering we know it's Doomsday, that's what threw me off that theory because of what Todd Helbing said. But I did entertain the idea. I do want to just kind of say that I thought, it could be another Clark, but I thought, are they really going to do that after the evil Superman, especially in season 1? But it turns out they still kind of have, even though it technically isn't an alternative Superman like the one from season 1, if you're still with me there. Either way, though, it's nice to know that I was kind of entertaining that, thought, that line of thinking. But this is where Bizzaro speaks that alien language, but if you reverse the audio, he says, "Leave me alone." Now, I find that kind of funny because he was punching Superman. But yeah, no, this Bizzaro, at least the way they're kind of introducing him to us, I feel like he's lashing out like an animal in a cage. He's saying, "Leave me alone." He's just got out of something. He's being shot at by US military. Superman lands. So I guess for now, we are meant to read it like he just wants to be left alone, and that's why he's kind of attacking, if you poke the bear, as they say. I like how the writers do include General Lane kind of entertaining the idea, or is this the evil Superman from your world, since they acknowledge that it's kind of a doppelganger of Clark, but not an exact match. But I like also how they kind of got a bit larger than life through saying, Clark, there's a bizarre version of Superman on the loose. So obviously a Bizzaro reference there. And it is, in interviews with Tyler Hoechlin with Entertainment Weekly, they're talking about Bizzaro, but I do still want to maintain the comments from Todd Helbing about being Doomsday. Probably a misdirect, but there was obviously homage there with regards to with the Big Daddy Bioshock-esque kind of early Doomsday Doomsday look, but they still could be doing a slight Bizarro Super Doomy kind of thing here in the long run, even though for all intents and purposes, he is and looks just like Bizarro. Clark is worried that if Anderson sends those kids in, this thing will destroy them, and that's when Sam said they're not kids, Clark, and even Superman needs to admit when he needs help. But yeah, you know, Tag kind of is, you know, if you think about it that way, and I've got a feeling maybe Tag is going to get battered at some point in the future, perhaps proving Clark's point in this moment, kind of making it a low-key foreshadowing, maybe. John Henry Irons and Nat kind of talk about what just happened, and I'm kind of excited because are we going to get an upgrade to the steel suit? With her saying, basically, we need to do something about this. She's worried about her dad, so if shit's going to go down, I'm going to improve your suit. But I don't expect massive upgrades because this is already quite a highly produced suit, but I am guessing there are going to be some at the very least, considering they are going to overhaul it a little bit. And then we have the very, very ending scene where Bizarro goes to the Fortress of Solitude, and he removes his suit, and on him is the tattered cape, basically quintessential live-action Bizarro look. And I feel like we might even begin to sympathize with this Bizarro, if you will. He's wearing that kind of pendant, I'm not gonna lie, kind of reminds me of Eclipso's diamond from Stargirl, but yeah, another thing that he says in this moment in reverse, that if you reverse it in English, he says, home. And why is it reversed? Well, just like the Superman and Lois logo, that was also reversed, a nod to the Bizarro character in the comics. So super interesting stuff, guys. So delighted with this episode. Absolutely spectacular. One thing I did want to read out from what Entertainment Weekly asked Tyler Hoechlin, just for some bonus information in this video. What makes Bizarro such a dangerous threat to Clark? And that is where Tyler Hoechlin responds, those are actual spoilers, I think, even at this point, so I won't get too much into that, but I will say we have choices, and people go down different paths. Clark and Superman, Kal-El, has always been very much in the path that he's walking, and maybe not everybody always does that. I think there's always a question of what happens if Superman wasn't Superman anymore if he started making different choices. So those are themes that we get to kind of explore, walking away from Superman and still being part of Superman. And the interesting thing I find about that with Bizarro, because that's talking about Bizarro basically, is that, well, technically you already did that with the Superman of the other Earth, John Henry Irons' Earth. He made different choices and actually agreed to destroy his own city, Metropolis, and Earth, which is insane. But I guess it's going to be interesting to see that in another vein, if you will, with the Bizarro character. I just feel like it's a bit of a retreading technically if you want to go down that specific line of explanation. They already did do that with the Black Suit Superman, but it's interesting how that applies to Bizarro here with just going down different paths. Superman has always believed this path, but Bizarro will be going down a slightly different one. But I do feel like there's going to be a lot more to it than just, oh, Bizarro deciding to make different choices than what Superman did. I do feel like it'll be a lot more intricate than that. But I'm going to leave this off here, guys. Absolutely stellar episode. Dying to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Leave a like on this video if you did enjoy. I really appreciate that. We're not so far away from the 100k mark, so if you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, do consider subscribing. I'm sure this channel won't disappoint you with all the various coverage we come out on, news reviews and updates and everything like that. Links, as always, are in the top pinned comment or in the description. Check me out on Twitter and my other various links. Other than that, I'm going to love you and leave you, everyone. So thank you so much for watching. Hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you fellow Kryptonians in the next video. Goodbye.